Sculptris Pro Mode is a real-time resolution modifier for your brushes. Be aware Sculptris Pro doesn't work with subdivision levels. When Sculptris Pro is enabled, your cursor will turn purple as indication. Brushing across your model will add extra polygons in that area. The amount of resolution applied to your mesh is set by the size of your brush. Small brushes will add more resolution than large brushes. Holding the Shift key to smooth will turn your brush orange as indication. A large smooth brush will reduce polygons in that area. A small smooth brush will add polygons in the area. Let's start our project out in Lightbox by double clicking the Cube 3D project. Click No to save in our current project settings. And as you can tell, we'll be sculpting a slice of pizza here. I'm going to go ahead and delete lower to get rid of our subdivision levels. And next I want to kind of scale this down to make the thin piece of crust shape. And now I'm going to Dynamesh, and you can use Dynamesh with Sculptris Pro. Just know that any additional geometry created with the brushes will change when you Dynamesh your model, but they do actually work pretty well together. Just turned off perspective, and my plan is to use the knife brush to just slice like so from the middle onto the corner. Let's actually undo that. If you pick the right side when using your knife brushes, symmetry will actually work fine. So let's try this side, and that worked out, and that just cleared away all that geometry on the side of that curve, giving us a nice triangle. Just scaling things a bit more with the Gizmo 3D. I think that's a good, nice piece of slice shape. I'm just turning on Sculptris Pro, and from a 3/4 view, just smoothing a bit. Okay, could probably stand to turn down my smoothing a bit, or just lightly tap. Good example of pin pressure and Z intensity. So now I'm going to append a cylinder 3D. I'm going to alt click to go to that subtool. Use Gizmo 3D to scale down the cylinder. Rotate the cylinder. If you hold shift, it will snap to degrees when rotating there. And now I'm just stretching it out to the length of our piece of slice, and this allows me to edit the crust separately from the base of the pizza. Alright, let's go down to deformations and use a bit of inflate just to get the kind of thickness that we need for that crust. Alright, and now from a nice angle here, I'm going to use Sculptris Pro and Shift to smooth, and as you can see, it's adding geometry. I'm just stretch out this crust a bit more, and I want to simulate a cut from an actual knife or pizza slicer with the knife brush. So now we have more of a straight edge to work with on our ends, and it gave us a little bit of extra geometry. I'm just gonna isolate with the selection tool, navigate to modify topology within the geometry subpalette, and I hit delete hidden. A bit more smoothing. Okay, just gonna stretch it a bit more. Now Sculptris Pro has some settings you can control inside the stroke menu. Now with the brush that has Sculptris Pro mode on, you can edit this subdivide value here, and that will simply add more triangles when you use Sculptris Pro. So it's technically adding more resolution. the lower you make this slider. So that's one way of controlling your resolution as you work, for adding more resolution or just smoothing out your mesh when you're using Sculptris Pro. Now keep in mind, Sculptris Pro is still more intensive than using natural brushes or brushes without Sculptris Pro. So what you'll see people do from time to time is isolate portions of their model using the selection tools. Just using the move brush, holding the Alt key to push and pull to give the base of our pizza slice here a bit of irregularity, look less geometric, more like a lump of something. Applying a bit of smoothing, changing my brush size so as not to reduce too much geometry. Okay. And as I said, Sculptris Pro is mostly for detailing, but you can definitely use it to create pieces like this. So now I'm just trying to give this crust more of a, I guess, square shape or less of a round shape. Trying to find a happy medium between the cartoonish look and an actual slice of pizza. Just using a bit of polish here just to flatten things out a bit more. Alright, let's head in the right direction. Just going back into the stroke menu, lower my subdivide a bit more. And that's pretty much Sculptris Pro. With the use of those settings in there, you can definitely learn to get the most out of it. So even this small of a brush is giving me a bit more resistance and timing. It's a bit more lag. But if I was to isolate this piece in my viewport, it would improve performance. Or for a brush this size, it's probably worth just turning off Sculptris Pro. So you have lots of options as far as your brushes and approaches to resolution here. Let's go ahead and turn off RGB there. That's a way to turn off color that some brushes have on. Okay, I'm just running it across the edge, holding Alt, using the clay brush. And I don't necessarily want a clean bevel, but I just wanted to make that edge less smooth. And just seeing where it takes us. Alright, on both sides I had turned off symmetry quite some time ago. Alright, I'm back to that move brush. Just trying to get this to look a little bit more interesting here. And this is the top cheese layer of our pizza ultimately. So I'm trying to get something that looks a bit more enticing, I guess. Applying a bit more polish. Trying not to get it too lumpy. Now from the side view here, just turn it off perspective. Just moving the crust forward a bit. Kind of level it out with the crust itself. Alright, back to the pizza. And what we're going to do is just take the damn standard brush. And I'm just going to carve kind of a line between the crust and the cheese. Because you would see a bit of an indication because we have a layer of, I say tomato sauce typically in there, so that would give a little bit of a divide. Maybe even see some extra ingredients in there. Okay, I'm back to the crust here. Just gonna make some edits with my move brush. Just kind of pulling it down and up. Just trying to consistently add some irregularity. Okay, I think our crust has a pretty decent shape for now. Let's go back to the pizza slice subtool here. I'm going to turn off symmetry, and I'm just going to draw a mask out here, and these will be the pepperoni on our pizza slice here. I'm just trying to keep the shapes somewhat similar, even some off the edge. They'll get cut, similar to our reference image there. I Control-Alt-Click to sharpen the mask, and now we're just cleaning up the edges. I'm going to go up to the subtool palette, open Extract, and click Extract. That looks pretty good. So let's just go ahead and click Accept to generate. Now we are actually on the pepperoni subtool, so I'm just using solo mode to view just that subtool. And now I'm just smoothing. You see, kind of got some hard edges here. Just smoothing things out. And Sculptris Pro naturally gives things a softer look when you smooth. Okay, so now with a move brush, I'm just editing the size and overall shape of these pieces of pepperoni. Okay, I think we have just the right amount actually, so that's why it's great to have reference and creating something. I'm just pulling off a bit of extra geometry off the sides of these pepperonis. I'm gonna perform a bit of an inflate to make them a bit thicker, a bit bolder. Okay. And now with that done, I'm gonna go ahead and grab our knife brush, and we're gonna cut these pepperonis that are right at the edge here, just to get more of a hard edge look, because it was cut. Just hit it with a little bit of a smooth, just to not be super sharp. So now with a smaller move brush, I'm gonna wiggle some of these points around, trying to make this pepperoni look less cookie cutter shape. Okay, not too much. I don't want it to get too much attention. Alright, so now with the standard brush, I'm just running it along the edges of the pepperoni, because they tend to curl up a little bit around the edges. If you ever took a little bit of a look at a pepperoni, got a little extra definition around the edges, possibly from the casing. And just running it around the edge like so. Maybe even a little smooth if needed. All the way around. Alright, now from a 3/4 view here, I'm going to use a Gizmo 3D and just thicken up the pizza slice base and push it back a bit. Okay. Now I'm going to size up my brush and do a bit more pushing and pulling with that move brush. Just trying to level things out a bit here. Okay. And now back with the damn standard brush. Just adding a few more strokes to that line dividing our cheese and our crust. Nothing too particular in detail. And now with the polished brush, I'm just running this along the edges, just trying to flatten them out a bit. And with polyframe on, you can see our density. As we're using these smaller sculpting brushes, you'll see more denser pockets of geometry. Alright, let's go back to the crust for a bit. I'm going to try adding a little bit of detail with the damn standard brush. Applying a little smooth as well. Some nice deeper crevices here and there. Nice faint strokes here and there. Okay. Now with the Chisel Organic brush, there's some textures towards the back. I'm just going to click and drag this onto the surface. As you can see, it affects the back as well, and we don't want that, so let's open the brush menu, open auto masking, click back face masking. So now when we're using this brush, I'm turned off Sculptris Pro mode. Now when we're using this brush, it won't affect the rear. Okay. Now we could use Sculptris Pro on this, but it's really not worth the lag here. Now, the thing that happens with these chisel brushes, sometimes they don't update when you're clicking. So sometimes you have to click off and click on other brushes. Okay. Now, lower our Z intensity a bit. And I think that is a nice texture to add to the cheese side, especially considering the angle we're holding it at. It kind of looks like the cheese is running a bit. Okay, I'm just changing the scaling and the position, combined with the layering of the pepperoni slices. It's easy to hide our repeating texture here. Just get the most out of one texture. So now I'm just hitting things up with a bit of smooth, regular smooth brush. That's with Sculptris Pro off. And now back to move. And when you get to some of the finer details, you likely want to disable Sculptris Pro for smoothing, as it doesn't allow you to keep as much detail. Okay, I'm going to kind of mimic some drips here and there. Nothing as heavy as the more cartoon version of pizza, but just kind of a subtle dripping by carving into the cheese here. Alright, about another one down here, just a light sketching out with a little bit of smooth afterwards. Okay. And now I'm just masking out the portion of the cheese here. I want to create a nice little drip, extending the cheese portion. So I just unmask that portion. I'll turn, instead of turning on Sculptris Pro just yet, I'm just going to pull down with my move brush. Alright, perform a bit of inflate. Okay, a bit of smoothing. bit more inflate. And now with the move brush, just kind of tweaking the shape all the way around. I'm gonna enable Sculptris Pro. Size my brush down and smooth. Kind of fix any overlapping geometry from the inflate. Okay, I think that's fixed that. Just zooming out now, see how things look with the drip. Apply a bit more inflate here. And next I'm going to turn off Sculptris Pro and perform a bit of pinch here above the drip. Now let's go ahead and alt click to switch to our pepperoni subtool. Now we're going to add some texture to the Gizmo, not the Gizmo, but the Chisel Organic brush. Make sure to play with your Z intensity to get the right kind of depth you want. And I still have back face masking enabled, or maybe disabled, since this will texture both sides, so it wouldn't hurt to have it texture both sides. Okay, that looks pretty good for our pepperonis. Just gonna move them around. Okay, so how things are looking. I'm gonna come back to that cheese drip here. My move brush, kind of flatten things out and play with the shape. Bit of smooth brush. All right, that's looking like a nice slice. So definitely take some time and play around with adding Sculptris Pro to your brushes. It's definitely useful for sculpting without subdivision levels and a great addition to Dynamesh.